try this a new way. I'm gonna show you the tricks that I know. I'm getting tired of talking, and I need more of a show right now. It's time that you made your mind up, 'cause lately all it ever does is change. Feels like we're only talking, going round and around, back around. I will fight like no other every day. I won't stop like the others. I will stay. 'Cause now is the right time, and I'm feeling alright. I'm playing your game like I know I can win right now. It's a final. You got me up tonight, 'cause loving you is like I'm walking a tightrope so high. I won't be turning around. No, I won't be turning around. It's the right time. You feeling alright? I'm playing your game like I will win tonight. I think I'll do it on my way. I'm gonna show you what I'm going through, get you out of your comfort zone, 'cause I need more of the truth right now. It's time that you made your mind up, 'cause lately all it ever does is change. Feels like we're only talking, going round and around, back around. I will fight like no other every day. I won't stop like the others. I will stay. 'Cause now is the right time, and I'm feeling alright. I'm playing your game like I know I can win right now. It's a final. You got me up tonight, 'cause loving you is like I'm walking a tightrope so high.
Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 word and to some reaction from a dramatic Italian Grand Prix at Monza with, I think, a pretty feel-good result for everybody all around. And I just want to say very quick, to kick this off, Annette, how are you feeling? I hope you're feeling good. Got a feeling you're going to be very, very, very happy with that one. McLaren's first win, spoiler alert, too late for that, in forever, 9 years. Their first 1-2 for 11 years. Absolutely unbelievable. Unfortunately, though, that may be overshadowed by something else. We'll get to that in just a second. I've got Jonty with me tonight. I will do super chats, and thank you very much to somebody who sent something on PayPal. I will read that out in a moment as well. But let's get the stream up and running, because this could take a while, with a look at the provisional race results. Daniel Ricciardo, wow, winner in Monza. 12 months on from Pierre Gasly, we get Daniel Ricciardo. Fantastic. Lando Norris, second place. Incredible day for McLaren, and in that fight, of course, for third in the constructors. Well done to them. Valtteri Bottas, I think, yes, he's in a very good car. Of course he is, but fantastic drive from him today. Charles Leclerc in fourth, Sergio Perez fifth, and Carlos Sainz in sixth. The Ferrari kind of doing the best they could there. Damage limitation seventh for Lance Stroll, 8th for Alonso, 9th for George Russell. Williams just can't stop bloody scoring. Esteban Ocon in 10th, Nicolas Latifi 11th, Sebastian Vettel 12th, and then we've got Antonio Giovinazzi in 13th. Seems to be able to get the qualifying right at the moment, but not so much the race. All seems to go a bit wrong for him there, but Robert Kubica 14th again, I think did a very good job. 15th for Mick Schumacher, and then your retirements list. Nikita Mazepin, who had a mechanical issue, Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel, who came to blows again. Pierre Gasly, very disappointing for him, not able to get to, I think, even a couple of laps into the race, really. And Yuki Tsunoda didn't start due to a mechanical issue. Right then, let's take a deep breath and say, for the first time in a little while, I know we've talked a lot this week, mate, but a very good afternoon. Did you enjoy that one?
Yeah, I enjoyed the result. Hello, everyone. Let me just leave it at that. McLaren 1-2. Yay. Lovely race. Let's go.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Yeah, that's a good point. I think it is going to get tasty. I've always said this. Just try and be respectful in chat. You know, it's all about opinions and all of that business. And we're all going to give ours, so no need to get nasty. From what I can see, most people, as always, are pretty cool with it. But if you've just been a little bit over the top, chill out. All right, just chill out. It's fine. Right, well, the OG's back, Jonty, tonight, and we've got a pretty... I want to talk about McLaren. I want to kick it off with McLaren, but I can't. We've got to start with Hamilton and Verstappen at that first chicane. So if you've missed the race... Verstappen had a very slow pit stop, 11.1 seconds, I think it was. Then Hamilton pitted and also had a much quicker pit stop, but still very slow, 4-point-something seconds. Came out pretty much side by side. Hamilton comes across. Verstappen on the outside of turn one. There's not a lot of space there. Whoever you want to put the blame at for that one, there's not a lot of space there. They do make contact. Verstappen hits a sausage curb, hits Hamilton over the top of him on the roll hoop. Rear wheel looks as though it's on Hamilton's helmet. In fact, he confirmed that after the race. And that was game over for both of them. I mean, first things first, Jonty, it wouldn't be an F1 word stream with Jonty on if we don't kick off by saying thank for the halo.
Is there some kind of weird thing going on where I end up being on when there's some kind of big incident?
Seems to be.
But yeah, another example of it saving a life without question. You know, that's a 700-kilogram car coming down on someone's head.
Yeah, it's not one of those that we've seen before where you go, oh, did it, didn't it? That's definitely done it. I mean, Hamilton said afterwards that he's a little bit stiff and a little bit sore because the rear wheel was on his helmet, but the halo is designed to stop that getting any worse than that, isn't it? So thank goodness that's there. And I know we always say it, but I think that's, for the final time, the argument on the halo put to bed. I mean, where do you want to start completely. Well, no. And I do want to come to that. I also want to talk sausage curbs in a minute, but just before we get onto the safety side of it too much, where's your gut on this, or how do you feel about this one? Because I'll say it. I'll just say what I want to say. I'll annoy people with this. I think people need to stop pissing their pants quite so much over contact. I don't think every single incident has got to be a penalty, and every single incident has got to be somebody's fault. I see that as a racing incident more so ready for this one. There's Silverstone, and I think that was a racing incident. Never mind on that. Let's not go down that road. I think that's a racing incident. Verstappen is absolutely entitled to a little bit more space. You could easily argue that it's Hamilton's corner, but Hamilton was entitled to just as much space at the second chicane on the first lap, and he was entitled to the same at Imola. This is what happens when you've got two aggressive drivers. I'm repeating what I said at Silverstone. When you've got two aggressive drivers who go wheel to wheel for a world championship, won't back out of it, this is going to happen. It's not the first time in history, is it, Jonty?
No, it's not the first time. It's going to happen again. It's going to happen again several times this year, I would assume. But I think the only thing that's really causing an issue here is the two camps of fans. If you look at it completely independently, both of them are textbook racing incidents, especially when it's the two guys fighting for the title. Neither one of them is going to give an inch. So when they're perfectly side by side, something's going to happen.
It's inevitable. Swaggy in chat saying, Paul, who thinks Sean should pick a side? I can't pick a side if there isn't a driver to blame. I don't think that's... Well, actually, no, both are to blame. Hamilton could have given more space. Verstappen could have backed out of it and gone across the chicane like we saw with Perez early in the race, like Hamilton did on lap 1, like we saw with Leclerc at one stage as well. So, yeah, that's where I stand. Both of them could have done more to get out of that, but they weren't going to. And to be honest, I don't expect them to. I might expect, with all due respect, I don't know, just looking at the timing screens, a Latifi and a Giovinazzi to get out of that, but I would not expect a Hamilton and a Verstappen to get out of that one. That's racing incident. The only thing I would say, though, because I like to play this game, but Christian Horner says it's sort of one of those things, obviously leaning more towards Max being completely innocent, as you would expect. He says pretty much one of those things, racing incident. That does make me wonder if maybe Verstappen is to blame, because usually when Christian Horner says something, I tend to want to go the other way. But as a fan, as somebody who's seen this happen before, as a fly lands on my microphone, anyway, I think that's a racing incident all day long. And when I saw it, I kind of almost laughed out loud. Not in a, oh my God, could have been hurt, but just in a, that was always going to happen again. And you're right, Jonty, it will happen again between now and the end of the season. But what did make me giggle, the thing that made me laugh the most, was Verstappen coming over the radio, this is what happens when you don't leave me the space, given what he did on lap 1. And I said to you in DMs, Jonty, that's why I love these drivers. They just won't take responsibility, will they?
Oh, no, never. They never will. I know it'll probably come up, bloody Herbert and De Resta and Massa and Damon going on and getting very childish. It was hilarious to watch. I'm sorry it was. It was like watching Big Brother again. But bringing up Senna and Prost, they did exactly the same. It's not okay when it's done on purpose, but that's always been the one thing I've preferred Senna over Prost, because a year later he did admit it. Prost never did. In these situations, if they have done it on purpose, neither one of them is ever going to admit it. Maybe in a book 30 years down the line. It's not in their nature to accept responsibility unless it's something really, really obvious, like they've locked up and gone sliding into the back of people, where you instantly hear them saying sorry to people. I'm trying to think. Someone did that last race, or was it in the F2? I can't remember, but someone just came straight on the radio saying, "Yeah, that's my fault." You know, it was just a complete accident. But when it's tight racing like that, no, you're never going to get responsibility from them. Never.
And you wouldn't expect it, would you?
No, I wouldn't want it.
Something wrong. There'd always be something wrong if a driver went, yeah, sorry about that. And the Senna and Prost comparison, I get it in the sense that it's a championship fight, but Senna absolutely deliberately took Prost out at turn 1 of Japan. You could argue Prost did the same to Senna a year before at the chicane. That's completely different to this. This is two drivers not willing to give an inch. And this was decided. People keep saying that Silverstone decided this. This was decided at Imola. As soon as Verstappen gave Hamilton that very little space on the outside, which by the way, I think was a racing incident as well. I don't think that was a penalty for Verstappen. Ever since he did that, the gloves were off. Hamilton was like, right, well, that's how we're going to race. Then this is to be expected. Yeah. So it's not I can't see the Senna Prost thing, but I think I will say this, like I say, Herbert, Damon, I understand why Damon asked the question, but Johnny, I mean, that's not That's not deliberate. Maybe
Oh, no.
maybe Verstappen will release an autobiography in 15 years' time and go, yeah, I did that on purpose. But right now, I cannot see how that's seen as deliberate. I know that the Hamilton fans will say that it is, and Verstappen fans will say it's Hamilton's fault. Sorry. Have a drink in a minute. But yeah, I just that's. I tend to ignore that, to be honest, Jonty. I see it sometimes in chat. I see it on Twitter. I'm not interested because you can't, for the same reason, if that had been Hakkinen sat on top of Schumacher's car, I'd be saying that was 100% Hakkinen's fault. You can't be impartial.
Yeah, it's so tricky. The last obviously deliberate move of any kind, takeout of any kind like that, I can remember seeing was Maldonado on Hamilton after qualifying at Spa 2012, 11? One of the two. When he swiped
I know the
past
one
his
you mean.
nose.
Yeah.
That's the last properly deliberate one I can think of. All of the others are one pushing a bit harder than the other.
We'll do a few super chats. No, go on, Jonty. You're right, mate. Well,
I was going to say, I was just about to set chat on fire.
Oh no.
Well, you mentioning Imola, and I'm going to say that moment is the point where Lewis potentially lost the title.
Really?
He backed out, took the escape. That gave Max the mental advantage. And Lewis has been fighting back from that ever since. And probably what caused Silverstone.
First things first, I've missed you. I get to deal with the comments later. But also, a couple of people actually saying Baku 2017, Vettel on Hamilton was a deliberate swipe, wasn't it? I mean, at speed, not really. I know what you're getting at, but yeah. Let's do these super chats quickly. See, get your guys' opinions across. Thank you so much to Lee. Second week in a row for that incredibly generous contribution. Says Max should have taken evasive action. He didn't. He chose to crash. Therefore, he should be penalised. Driver behind is a driver behind. I quite love Max's talent, but at times he can be a blithering idiot. Thank you so much, mate. Thanks for setting chat off as well, Lee. But thank you for your awesome contribution. Massively appreciated. Thank you to Field. Good to see you again as well this week. Slightly controversial. Most weeks, I think you hear, mate. I don't know why just this week. Slightly controversial, and I am 100% in favour of the Halo, but in recent years we have had, it seems, two, three crashes a season where a driver would be killed without it. Is it possible the Halo gives them confidence to go for potentially scary moves? We'll come back to that one. Thank you very much, mate. Thank you to Phil. Says crashes out your rival, doesn't check on him. Fans claimed intent to kill. Where have we heard that one before? Well,
that's what I'm trying to wind people up on Twitter with, and so many bites.
Raz says one of the most entertaining races this season by far. Bottas looking at replay of Max Lewis crash. Oh no, anyways, Top Gear meme. Thank you very much, mate. Thank you to Elliot as well. Says Verstappen the most aggressive top driver since Michael Schumacher. Leave that with me. Nice person says, let's not make the mods lives hell, guys. Be chill. Thank you very much, mate. Yes, listen to nice person. They're a nice person. It's in their name. An F1 diplomat says, Max should have waited until a straight and gone past then. Lewis had cold tyres, hot-headed from slow pit stop. Poor decision-making. Halo saves life. So two things to pick out of that super quickly, Jonty, before we get back onto things. We'll go with the Elliot one first. Is Verstappen the most aggressive top driver since Michael Schumacher? I mean, top driver. I was just going to say then, sorry, Maldonado was pretty aggressive, but I don't think Maldonado was a top driver, to be fair to him. I'm just trying to think. I mean, Montoya was pretty punchy, wasn't he? But then Michael Schumacher's still around.
Montoya. So... Yeah, I was going to call Montoya. I mean, there's a big, just mentioning Maldonado, there's a big difference between aggressive and violent.
That's true. Yeah, it's a good question, actually. Let me know, chat. Was it a driver since Michael Schumacher, let's say, retired from his first spell at Ferrari, that's as aggressive as perhaps some people think Verstappen is? And aggression, by the way, doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. I mean, Michael Schumacher wouldn't have won 7 world titles without some aggression. It's all part of it, definitely. And the other one was from Field. No, it wasn't. Who was it that said the one about... there it is. Phil B says, crashes out your rival, doesn't check on him. Fans, that's the wrong one again. Right, I'm just going to paraphrase what it was rather than read it again. Are people taking more risks, Jonty, because they've got the Halo now and they know that safety is pretty not great, not amazing, not perfect, but pretty damn good at the moment.
Possibly. There could well be a psychological feeling of invulnerability because of things like this, but it's weird to call that because we've had so many. Well, we've had a few extremely severe incidents recently, but because they haven't been in F1, no one's got seriously hurt. In F1, it's just been F2, World Endurance, and a few other series. It still doesn't get those headlines. So, difficult.
And Emily as well. Thank you, Emily, popping a contribution into the beer fund for London. I am actually putting that aside as well. As the beer fund. I've got a little savings account now that I've called the beer fund. So a couple of quid goes in from Emily when it goes in. Thank you very much for that one. Massively appreciate it. So, I mean, chat, let me know. I'll do some more super chats in a bit. Ham, ver, or racing incident? Let me know what you think. I think we're both pretty clear, Jonty, on where we stand. Is there anything you wanted to add on this? Because obviously this is huge for the championship, but for Max Verstappen, he's come out of this weekend a couple of points better off and with a slightly bigger lead. It's only 5 points, but it's still a bit more.
Well, as much as it's fun to discuss what the drivers did, in me, the FIA is at fault because of those sausage curbs. Even not taking the full escape that Max could have done and trying to stick it in right tight on the inside of the corner, it's the sausage curb that's launched him into the air, not just a little bit, it's properly pitched him up, meaning that for the next 10, 15, 20 meters, he has exactly zero control of the car. That's what's caused the result. If they weren't there, they probably would have banged tyres a bit, maybe a front wing, and they would have come out with it fine. But because of that sausage curb, we've ended up with them both out of the race, leading to all of these arguments and debates and two camps of fans who were literally on fire on all social media. I've talked about them before. We've seen people nearly die from it. Without the halo, we would have seen someone die from it. They're what needs to go.
Well, it's another one of those, and I hate to say it, it's just another one of those conversations we often have where I think we'll talk about this until somebody's killed or seriously injured. It's what the FIA seem to do. So, but on the incident itself, are you saying that if that sausage curbs or those sausage curbs aren't there, Max is perhaps more likely to bail out because it's just a flat bit of tarmac or green bit and he can shoot across it without risking damage and then sort it out later?
Yeah, absolutely. But yes, that's a possibility, but it also wouldn't matter because they wouldn't have been clattering together with one of the cars out of control. Like I said, they would have been bashing faces of tyres next to each other, like proper wheel-to-wheel racing. But then everyone would turn around and go, yeah, but track limits. And that would launch that bloody thing again. And everyone would be going on, oh, well, it should have been a penalty. It shouldn't have been. His tyre was 1 millimeter onto the white line, blah, blah, blah.
I think I've seen a couple of people in chat making the argument that, Verstappen's only on the sausage curb because he's out there. But whose fault is that? Is it because Hamilton's pushed him out there? Is it because Verstappen should have backed out of it? And just because I like to put in counter arguments, Golan says he's tuning out, or they're tuning out because they say curb, fatal, stop. I'd suggest you go and watch Alex Peroni's crash because without the halo, he'd be dead. So yes, they can be. But I like to put the counter argument in.
Sophia Flörsch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Sophia Flörsch, of course.
That's the point. It's the point why I go on about these, because in the last 3 years, we've now had 3 drivers with spinal fractures as a direct result of the sausage curbs. That's a fact. Sophia Flörsch, Sean Gelael, and Alex Peroni. Unacceptable. What's got to happen for them to stop using them? They've taken away the one that Peroni hit, but look at all the others.
I mean, I just feel like I can have this conversation every single time, to be honest. Just on the aggressive driver thing, by the way, a couple of people just pointing out Hamilton. He was pretty aggressive, particularly when he first kicked off in F1, wasn't he? He was quite an aggressive driver. I think he still is, but he's more. How can I word this? He wasn't thick before. That's what this is going to sound like. I don't mean like that. I just mean that with experience, he's become more intelligent, hasn't he? He knows when to be aggressive and when not to be, and when it's too far. And today's gone that way. Same with Verstappen. Verstappen will get that with age as well. And I also saw Leclerc's name crop up as well a couple of times. He was definitely, or definitely is still quite. And I know you think he's got quite a cheeky, mean streak in him, Jonty. I know that, but he could be quite punchy and aggressive too. So some good shouts there. Like I said, I'll get a couple of your counter arguments in before we move on to the good stuff. I mean, that's great stuff if you're looking at it as the driver's getting away and it's all set up the championship for even more spicy action. But I mean, we could see some more surprise wins, Jonty, if these two are going to keep coming together. And Perez and Bottas are sort of, and I'm not attacking Bottas today, by the way, but Perez and Bottas a bit inconsistent this season. I mean, we could see some more surprise wins, which is fine. An Alonso win?
Yeah, possibly. He's been really showing some of his old class. I've very much enjoyed watching him. He might have got a little bit on the naughty side a couple of places, but it hasn't resulted in anything.
Yeah, and he's not as, I keep saying this, he's not as moany off track either, is he? And by the way, I read some quotes from yesterday on sprint qualifying, which we'll talk about later. I agreed with pretty much every bloody word he said. I was like, what? I'm agreeing with Fernando Alonso. This doesn't feel right. Mr. Bungle says it's all okay. Both were out. Sausage curb launch Max. End of argument. Kara says Mr. Blessed, obviously referring to Hamilton, needs a penalty. The GOAT is here, says it's Verstappen's fault. It wasn't that long ago people have been yelling in favour of sausage curves with forced track limits, says Will to Die. Sausage curves with forced track limits, yes, but as soon as they start causing accidents that nobody foresaw, then you can argue the other way, if you get what I'm getting at there. Don't want to get too much into it now. The four lads should do a podcast. I think that's something else. I assume me, Jonty, Stuart and Dan. I don't know if we're lads. I think Dan's a lad. He's much younger than we are, but I'll take that. I'll take it. Thank you as well to Charles Edward Cheese, smiling right back at you, mate, for your incredibly generous contribution as always. Thank you so much for that one. You're a legend. I mean, you're all legends. Anyone that contributes anything is a legend. Anyone that comments is a legend. You guys watching are brilliant. I will get to Ricardo in a second, but I'll just do these super chats while we're on the Max Hamilton things, they stay relevant. WJ Slice, thank you very much, says, would a grid penalty even matter if Max takes a new power unit in Sochi? That's a great shout. I don't think there will be a penalty. I really don't. If there is, that opens the door for just to get a new power unit in that car for Red Bull. So that might be kind of damage limitation for them. And Sochi, although we never see it, you can overtake. We never see it, but you can. It's there. Tenesh says, why are F1 fans like Verstappen leaving the door closed when Hamilton does? He is looked as he shouldn't do that. I have no idea. I think the problem is you've got two sides of a fan base and it just all explodes, to be honest. And I just tend to ignore that, but you're always going to get biased. Raz says George Russell after getting P9 on merit pace, but focus is on McLaren 1-2 and Max Lewis crash. Netflix, my cameras are on. I think Netflix following Ferrari this weekend. You could be forgiven for thinking they were following AlphaTauri, actually. Phil says, love a Jonty stream. Hope you and yours are doing well. Also, who is Jonty's favourite driver of all time? Obviously, Halo saved Grosjean and wasn't two cars, so I remain in favour. Just a trend I have noticed. Your favourite driver, quickly, Jonty, of all time? I know.
Jim Clark. Every day.
Felipe says, have a good beer on me. Thank you very much, mate. Annette says, definitely for the beer fund. Thank you, Annette. I bet you're buzzing. Absolutely buzzing. And Built says, explain the difference between Imola Turn 1, today's Turn 1 and Turn 3. I think we kind of covered that one. It's two aggressive drivers. I don't like the Silverstone comparison. I think they're two very different incidents. I think there are elements of it that have come from that, but nah. But thank you very much for all your contributions. I'll do some more super chats shortly. Let's move on from this. We're not reviewing it. We're just discussing it. Danny Rick is a race winner again, Jonty. Do you know, the only way I could be happier with today's result if that's two Williams up there. Honestly, I am absolutely thrilled. And how good is it to see McLaren at the front of a Grand Prix again? And I'm going to say it. Yes, you could argue lucky because the championship rivals took each other out, but they were in this race long before those two took each other out. Daniel Ricciardo, I think, was pretty much in control up front.
Yeah, that Ricciardo won that with that start. He was lightning off the line. He was, completely clear before they even got to the braking for turn one. Nothing was taking that away from him, apart from maybe Lando getting a bit, what's the word?
Cheeky?
Impatient. Impatient. But I was actually quite worried at that point. But then Ricciardo just picked up more pace, so it was like, oh, it's fine.
Well, he smacked in the fastest lap on the final lap, so the speed was in that car, wasn't it, on both McLarens this weekend. So I'm just absolutely chuffed for them. And I think it's just the perfect... It's perfect for Ricciardo because he's had a very difficult season, and I think he's been better since Belgium. I think, qualifying he was strong there. There wasn't a race, of course, but qualifying he was strong there. Looked much better in Zandvoort as well, closer to his teammate. And today he's got that win. I think this will be it. This will be the one he kicks off from. But it all was the start, wasn't it? I mean, it was all done yesterday, really, with Hamilton's bad start and Ricciardo just getting up there and into P3. Obviously, Bottas taking his penalty, which puts him on the front row. But it was all that start. But it was quite a... I don't know about you, but I thought quite a weird start because Verstappen had a good start. It's just Ricciardo's was a little bit better in what Martin Brundle likes to call the second phase. Just positioned the car perfectly.
Yeah, he really had a lightning start. He positioned it well, and like you say, that second phase, I'm not entirely sure where that actually comes in. What point? Is it around third gear, maybe fourth? But it's definitely what won the race for him. But actually, chat, can anyone remember when did Ricciardo pit? Was it during a safety car or a VSC?
No, it was.
I can't remember.
It was on race pace because Red Bull came out to react, didn't they? And Max was essentially told to do the opposite.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh, that's a shame because that means he didn't leave for that lap. I was just wondering if he had a Grand Slam. Oh well, one lap short of a Grand Slam.
Yeah, well, Norris took the lead for a bit, didn't he? And then Hamilton got past him. So I don't think the Grand Slam was on today. But I honestly don't think he'll mind, mate. I think he'll be fine with that. We got to see the shoey as well. This seems like I've been saving it. I've not been ignoring you. Thank you very much to Kalen. I'm not going to use the surname just in case, but Kalen, who sent in a PayPal contribution, is obviously from Australia. Says Daniel Ricciardo P1 and fastest lap in F1. Oscar Piastri P1 in F2. What a bloody... I nearly did the accent. What a bloody beautiful weekend in motorsport, and that would have killed me. Thanks, Sean, for creating such a great community of mad F1 fans. Shout out to Granny Annie and the other mods. Shout out to Jonty and the other guest host, Aussie. Oi, oi, oi. Thank you very much. Let's get some oi, oi, ois in chat for Kalen. Thank you so much, mate. Massively appreciate that one. I nearly did the accent. We're bloody beautiful there.
Yeah, and people pointing out I forgot about pole position for Grand Slam.
Sorry, of course, yeah.
My brain's gone. It's been a mad, it's a fairly mad weekend because the F2 was all manic from start to finish for all three bloody races.
I mean, I don't know what else to say on Ricciardo. I'm just so happy for him, and it's just so good to see him. Do you think he will kick on from here? Do you think this is just the beginning for him, or is this just a one-off and we need to chill out a little bit and stop being so bloody emotional?
No. I don't think it's been any kind of resurgence for him. He's had some bad luck through the year, and the summer break does seem to have settled him down a bit. I do feel like a lot of it's been in his own head, especially with so many people in the first three races going, "Oh, he hasn't been able to match up to Lando, and we all thought he was going to kick his ass." It's like, well, Lando's had a year in that car. That's not fair.
No, he, like a lot of them, he needed time, didn't he? Those that switched teams, but he delivered today, and that they kind of alluded to it to Sky. Zach Brown and Andreas Seidel were saying, this is why we bought him in. He's he's a race winner. I'm not saying Lando Norris couldn't have won that race, but that race winning experience on a day like today can easily make that difference, and they managed it. The fact that he put in the fastest lap on the last lap just shows you how well that was managed, the pace and the tyres by McLaren today. Brilliant from both of them. I mean, Lando Norris was excellent today. He got involved today again rather, got involved in some scrapping to, fighting with Lewis Hamilton, admitted to letting that one go at one point because it wasn't worth the risk. And who did he overtake? He did well to fend off Perez, didn't he? As well, I think he got a move done shortly after the safety car or somebody. I've not put it in my notes, but you can't fault them. And the fact that he then came over the radio a little later in the race and said, essentially, do you want me to stay where I am? Is that best for the team? And the team not giving a team order, but just confirming to him, yeah, stay where you are. This is best for the team. And it just worked beautifully for them. And they did start to pull away towards the end a little bit because, like I say, they obviously have more pace in that car. But I don't think either driver could have done much more or anything better today. I think they were both superb.
Yeah, absolutely.
Norris on the inside of Leclerc was perfection, says Greg. Good shout. Yes, that was it. The move on Leclerc, half on the grass. I mean, that takes some nuts, doesn't it? Around Curva Grande. Absolutely fantastic. Great stuff. It's still fourth in the championship, isn't he, Norris? Because Bottas got third today. So, I mean, fourth. If he can finish top 5 this season in the standings, I mean, that would be absolutely remarkable, wouldn't it? It really, really would. So, I'd like to see him top 4, if I'm being honest. I think the season deserves it, but I still think Checo in that Red Bull will just about pip him to it. It's still close between them, but brilliant. And I do know, by the way, thank you to Nuke Dukem. I do know about the Lance Stroll summons. We'll get to that one when we get to Lance Stroll. Thank you for the heads up. Yeah. Sorry, people just confirmed it was Leclerc. Going, what was that? Oh yeah, no, it was Leclerc. Absolutely. So, yeah.
I've got to say, I'm a little bit disappointed with your British bias, saying the only way it'd be better with Williams up there. I mean, come on.
Oh, only because they've suffered longer. No disrespect to it. McLaren have suffered. They really have. But Williams have. Oh, I say they've suffered longer. They were second in Belgium, weren't they? I'm just trying to think when Williams' last win was. It was 2012, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So they've both suffered actually pretty much for about the same amount of time, except Williams have been stuck down the back of the grid. So that's kind of why I feel like I would have been more emotional if it had been Williams because of the trip they've been on. It was quite amazing seeing George Russell in Belgium, wasn't it, up there? But typical British bias. Valtteri Bottas. Let's just get on to Bottas. We give him a lot of stick, Jonty. I know he's in, at worst, the second best car on the grid. Some might argue the fastest car this weekend. But I still think he had a very, very good race to get himself up to P3 and did a lot of that work early on. Moved through the field. He was up to P13 fairly quickly, into the points fairly quickly, and then just kept getting the moves done, put his car where it needed to be, made sure he was there to capitalise on any luck that fell his way. I think it was a bit more like the Bottas we saw in 2019, the early stages of 2019, if that makes sense. And maybe here he comes with his psychology nonsense, but maybe now that it's all done and dusted and out in the open and he knows he's at Alpha next year, he can focus on racing. He's just gone for it with nothing to lose, and I think he did a great job today. Fantastic drive.
He's had a fantastic weekend.
Very true.
All weekend, his qualifying was good. His whatever we're calling the race on Saturday was good. It highlights exactly what frustrates me about him so much. As we've said God knows how many times on here, he is lightning quick. He can beat Lewis on equal merit in qualifying. The man with 100 pole positions. That's how good he can be. But it just happens so rarely. And then after being told he won't be in the car, he suddenly has the best weekend of the whole season. How does that work?
I don't know. Maybe just so chilled out, doesn't matter. And nothing to lose from the back of the grid either, really, has he? From 19th, but he was bringing himself into play before Hamilton and Verstappen came together because there was that might have even been what triggered the pit stops at the front, because he cleared, I think it was Stroll, and then was just pumping in the laps, and that gap was coming down, and that kind of forced Ricciardo and Verstappen to make their stops when they did, because Bottas was coming into play. Because if they got stuck behind him, as it turned out, I think Verstappen didn't he, after the pit stops, but that I think he played a great role today for Mercedes, even though he started 19th. And there was a point where I legitimately thought he was going to win this. I thought it was him all the way. And it was after the safety car, fields bunched up, in the mood he's in, with a car that's a rocket ship in a straight line, which was curious because Hamilton's wasn't. So maybe that's why he was so quick in quali on Friday. Set that car up knowing he's starting from the back of the grid so he gets some overtakes done. That's probably just sending a press release, actually, but there you go.
Yeah, he was genuinely in with a shout of winning this from the back. He rocketed through the field, as you would expect him to. And to be honest, we've seen him have to do this a few times, and he's never come through this quick before. I know it's particularly good track layout for it, for the best car behind, the midfield of the back markers. It should be super easy down the straight, but he's never done it this well before. If he'd have been able to, if he'd have had weekends like this, most of the year with one or two bad ones, he'd still be in the seat.
Again, I've missed you. I disagree. I think the Russell thing was decided pretty much after Sakir. I don't think Bottas, aside from winning the title this year, I don't think there's much Bottas could have done, to be honest. I think it was done. That's just me. People will disagree, of course they will. But I did see just a good point. Duck Dastardly, and I saw somebody else make the point as well. Warren M, just a reminder he had a new engine as well. And apparently, according to Ted, the Mercedes engine tends to degrade in performance as it gets older, a little bit more than others does. So a fresh new engine will have given him a big boost this weekend. So yeah, I just think brilliant. I think brilliant from Bottas, and I completely agree with you. We needed to see more from him, more consistently with that, and I hope that he can do for the rest of this season, because he could be critical in this Constructors' Championship fight, because Verstappen and Hamilton, when they're not wiping each other out, they're going to pick up wins and second places, aren't they, pretty much consistently. So it's who is the best of the teammates, and Perez is very inconsistent, much more inconsistent than Bottas is. Obviously, a newer car to him than it is for Bottas, but I think he could be critical, and if he doesn't even have to be as good as he was today, just be more consistent with it and be there to back up his teammate, and Mercedes could absolutely romp away with the Constructors this year, even if the drivers ends up being really close. So keep it up, Valtteri. I've always screamed it on these streams at times, Jonty. You'll remember the times when I'm like, we just want him up there competing, when it was just Mercedes all the way. But yeah, and I hope he does well at Alpha next year. I'm sure we'll talk about that when we get to Q&A and things. Charles Leclerc, P4. Again, another driver who there was a moment I thought was in with a shot of a win today, but the pace just wasn't quite there, was it, for Ferrari, which is a shame, because it's always nice to see Ferrari win in front of the Tifosi, even if it's half a crowd, because they go mad. But yeah, I think pretty mega day from Charles Leclerc. I think Ferrari are doing a great job this season. Both drivers have been fantastic. And a nice little fight as well with Checo at 1.2, who got a 5-second penalty. Do you agree with Perez's penalty, Jonty? I'll be honest, I do, because I know Red Bull have said that they weren't told to give that position back, but I think it was pretty obvious to most people watching that he should have given that position back.
Yeah, that penalty was completely stupid by Red Bull. It was so obvious it was going to be a penalty. They should have been on the radio immediately saying, just give it back, get him next lap. I've seen it. I think I saw it twice in this morning's F2 race alone, with people coming on the radio saying, give the place back or get him next lap for doing the exact same thing. Why would you even do that, especially when everyone's so tight? It's not like there was a big gap to the guy behind him. At that point, I think we had the top 7 covered by about 12 seconds.
It was a great race all round, wasn't it? I mean, yeah, I was just looking. I am listening, but I'm just scrolling through Twitter to make sure we haven't got a decision on anything. But I don't think there'll be a stewards announcement anytime soon. I'll keep an eye on the FIA as well.
No, that'll take a while. Although I have seen a tweet saying that it must be from Ted's notebook, as he's wandering around, that Ted's found out that Mercedes went down to the McLaren garage with 6 bottles of champagne to make sure they had enough to go around.
Is that part of the engine supply deal? I'll buy some Merc engines for some champagne. Might be cheaper to buy the champagne, to be fair, but yeah, that's nice. That's nice. I mean, they aren't going to use it, are they? Really? So might as well. But yeah, that's a nice gesture. I like that. So that must be from Annette says, "Oh, sweet" in chat. She's on her way now. She's on her way to Italy. She'll have a glass. Yeah, that's a nice gesture from Mercedes. But just on the Perez, I mean, he cut the corner. It's a penalty, and I can't debate that at all. I can understand people saying, "Oh, well, you know, such and such happened," and I'm sure there are other arguments to it, but I just don't. I don't know why Red Bull didn't just give it back, and it was the same yesterday in the sprint thing. Like you, whatever that was. He took a little while to give that position back again, didn't he? So I just don't understand why Red Bull waited for that, and that 5 seconds cost him big time. Because I think he had the pace to get Leclerc, didn't he? So if he'd not done it then, he probably would have done it very soon after, and he could have been third today.
Yeah, exactly. And Kirill's pointed out in the chat, Horner said that Red Bull asked race control if they had to give the place back and got no reply. Which is even more foolish by Red Bull, if you ask me. You know, if you get nothing back, just be safe. 5 seconds is a lot at Monza.
Yeah, but do you need a response from race control? Really? Have Red Bull not been doing this long enough to know that that's... I'm with you. It's just weird that they decided to leave it, unless they legitimately thought Perez would get 5-6 seconds up the road. I don't know, but he didn't. He was only 1.8 in the end, clear of Sainz after the penalties applied. So I don't know why they did it, but they did. But yeah, Carlos Sainz has had a mucky weekend. It's a messy weekend. Everyone's criticising Sainz for his crashes, 3 in the last 4 events, as Sky keeps saying. Still finished 6th, and he still wasn't that far off his teammate, despite a heavy crash in practice, which was a nasty one, and then got caught up with that Giovinazzi incident on lap 1, which absolutely was 100% on Giovinazzi, by the way. Bizarre. But I think he could be very happy with P6 today. I don't think there's much more looking at Ferrari's race pace over practice, looking at their race pace in the actual race. I don't think he could have done much more than 6th place today, and without Perez's penalty, he's right behind his teammate. Yeah.
Sorry, I got distracted.
No, it's all right. I always get distracted by chat and on Twitter, but checking for updates and things. Yeah, I just think Ferrari, you put Verstappen and Hamilton back into that. What's that? 6th and 7th, 5th and 6th, somewhere around there. That's about where Ferrari have been, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'll be honest, a little tiny bit of me was hoping that maybe Bottas and Perez would safely tangle so that we could have the McLaren 1-2 and a Ferrari on the podium just for seeing the Tifosi go nuts. Because that's one of the best things you can see all year of Formula One, the Tifosi crowded underneath that podium. And why don't we get more podiums like that? Why are they all tucked away where they've got to look over all the pit lane and what have you? I want more special podiums. Sorry, I've gone off on a tangent there.
No, you're right. Like Silverstone, it's kind of stuffed at Club Corner, but you know what I mean. It's in a bit of a corner, isn't it? It's not. You want it get it in the middle of the track, get them all out there. And I know Monza, Tifosi. Could you imagine that podium at Zandvoort? I mean, it would basically be in the grandstand. Because it's such a narrow track. But could you have imagined? I always go back to the scenes of Charles Leclerc. I'll just go to Twitter. But I always remember the scenes of Charles Leclerc 2019 at Monza. They were absolutely phenomenal. We do have some breaking news. Chat, if you're watching this on chat replay, you'll know. Breaking news. Max Verstappen has been handed a 3-place grid penalty for the Russian Grand Prix.
Oh, God. The only reason I'm laughing is because that just feels like the stewards are just lobbing. It's not a hand grenade, it's a full-on nuke into Formula One social media. That is absolutely ridiculous. Not in a million years is that worthy of a 3-place penalty. Never.
It's not worthy of a penalty.
It's not worthy of any penalty.
I just wonder. I wonder if I don't know. I'll check the thingy when it comes to on the FIA press release thing. But I wonder if part of that decision is the safety because he landed on Lewis's head. But if that is the case, but if that is the case, then you're making that penalty decision based on the consequences of the crash, which is what the FIA said they don't do.
Yes, and if the FIA did make decisions based on the consequences of the crash, then Lewis would have got a minimum 1 race ban after Silverstone.
I'm going to try and see if it's... I'm not often lost for words. You might have noticed I'm a bit of a gobshite. I'm really surprised by that. I am genuinely surprised. Let's have a read of this then. So... the stewards heard from the driver, blah, 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 reviewing video evidence. Car 44 was exiting the pits. 33 was on the main straight. At the 50-metre ball before turn 1, car 44 was significantly ahead of Verstappen. Verstappen braked late and started to move alongside Hamilton, although at no point in the sequence does Verstappen get any further forward than just behind the front wheel of Hamilton. During the hearing, the driver of Verstappen, Hamilton opened the steering after turn 1 and was squeezing him, is what Verstappen says to the apex of turn 2. Hamilton asserted that the driver of car 33, Verstappen, attempted to pass very late and should have given up the corner, either by backing off sooner or by turning left behind the curb. So the stewards did their usual bit of reviewing race footage and CCTV footage and observed that Hamilton was driving an avoiding line, although his position caused Verstappen to go into the curb. But further, the stewards observed that Verstappen was not at all alongside Hamilton until significantly into the entry of turn 1. In the opinions of the steward, this manoeuvre was attempted too late from the driver of Verstappen to have the, quote, right racing room, while Hamilton could have steered further from the curb to avoid the incident. The stewards determined that the position was reasonably and therefore find that the driver of Verstappen was predominantly to blame for the incident. In coming to the penalty, the stewards emphasised that they have only considered the incident itself and not the consequences thereof. Right to appeal, which I'm sure Red Bull will want to look into. 2 penalty points as well.
That is absolutely insane. The wording of that is almost identical to the statement they put out from Silverstone. One car could have done more, but determined that the other was predominantly to blame. It's identical. So, what?
What they seem to be saying, and I read all that out literally as it's written, so apology if it made very little sense, but I tend to find the FIA documents are just too freaking legal sometimes. I know they have to be careful, but what they're saying is that Hamilton was driving a racing line to avoid it. They accept that he could have steered further from the curb, but have determined that 1, Verstappen was not far enough alongside, and 2, made the move too late. It's times I really wish I could show the replay footage on stream because I'd love to watch that again. Because Verstappen wasn't completely alongside when you look at the onboard at the apex of the corner, but I don't think that move was late from Verstappen. Unless I'm completely missing. I just don't see how that was.
Yeah, of course it was. Of course it was late. It was an attempted move around the outside. They're always late because you carry more speed around the outside so that you've got the inside for the following corner. That's how outside moves work. Who was the driver's steward today?
Oh, I have no idea.
Stevie Wonder?
What I mean by late, and this is where I obviously am completely different to others in the interpretation of stewards. What I mean, he didn't go in massively, super stupidly late on the brakes and make the decision late. He was alongside Hamilton on the exit of the pit lane, wasn't he? He was there. That's what I mean by not late. Of course, it's late in the sense that he's trying to go around the outside, but he's not thrown it in stupidly. That's how I view late. Just to clear that up, so that's not very clear. But I just, all right. I mean, I just saw somebody in chat, and it's scrolling so quickly, I'm so sorry I can't shout your name out. I should have done it straight away, but saying that, yes, it's worded very similar to Silverstone, but at least it's consistent, essentially, which I guess is something, but I don't know. Sorry for the pauses. I'm just really surprised. I genuinely thought that was going to come back as a racing incident. So to see that as a... I'll find your driver steward for you now, Jonty. It'll be at the bottom of the article, won't it? So Gary Connolly, Tim Mayer, Antonio Liuzzi was the driver steward by the look of it.
Well, that makes even less sense. Unless he's just bitter about being kicked out of the car, out of the seat early. In fact, it does make sense when you think about it that way.
Yeah, maybe. No, I need to digest that. We're going to move on because I need to think about that, and we'll come back to it in a bit because I need to just ponder a bit more because I don't think that's a penalty, and I'm not. And it's one of those weird ones where I'm sort of thinking, well, I can't actually see where the stewards are coming from. But I need a bit of time to digest it. So let's talk about where did we get to? We did the Ferraris and Perez. We'll talk about Stroll quickly. He's under investigation for not slowing down under yellow flags. Something that they didn't penalise anybody for in Baku, but it looks like they're going to today. If you want to talk about consistency, if he gets to keep that 7th place, decent result for Lance Stroll. I don't remember seeing a huge amount of him. He was in that sort of little gaggle of cars, wasn't he, that were in a bit of a DRS train, but obviously raced well enough to get 7th place, which are big points for Aston Martin. Fernando Alonso, P8. Good to see him in the points again. He's really got to grips with that car, hasn't he now, Alonso? He was struggling to start with, but he's really kicking on now. But we're starting to see, you said it earlier, starting to see the Fernando we know.
Yeah. It was kind of a tough... They've got a few points out of it. It was kind of an iffy race for Alpine. They didn't really seem anywhere. You know what I mean?
They've been like that for a few races, haven't they, Aston?
Yeah, they didn't really have... I thought you were on about Alpine.
Did I say Aston? Sorry, Alpine. Yeah, sorry. Apart from obviously Ocon's win.
Yeah, they really didn't have that much, the pace we expected today. And Ocon kind of made a bit of an iffy move on Seb.
Yeah, the Alpine Aston fight has been quite good, and it's been quite weird as well because Alpine have kind of, I think, in that battle have overtaken them, not just on points but in terms of performance. I think Alpine is the better car than the Aston, but I think Alonso today was stellar. Stroll got those points. I don't think he's going to keep those points, but we'll see. It'll be 5 seconds, would it, for ignoring yellow flags? So he might end. I'm not doing quick maths, but he might end up 10th. It depends on how strict they want to be on that one, but we'll keep an eye on Twitter for that one. But yeah, Esteban Ocon's move on Sebastian Vettel. It was reminiscent of Leclerc and Hamilton in 2019, just with a bigger whack, wasn't it? I mean, he got a 5-second penalty for that. That is one of those that is 100% a penalty. He's smashed into another car, and that's the end of it, isn't it? He's not given Vettel any space on the outside at all. A fairly high-speed part of the track, just going into braking for that second chicane. So I don't really think, unless you want to counter it, Jonty, tell me that you think Ocon absolutely shouldn't have got a penalty.
Oh, no, he definitely got a penalty for that.
It's like I knew. Yeah, just squeezed him really late on. But, I mean, it's points for Alpine again, isn't it? I've not got much to say on it. That's kind of difficult because everything was happening at the front. But George Russell in the points again. 2 points for Williams. That came out of nowhere. Just another steady weekend. Do you think... I'm going to ask you this now, actually. I've been saying that car is, at worst, 8th best. Do you think that's on par with Aston and Alpine on a race day? They're not far off, are they?
They're not far off. I'd say they're on par for Saturday. You know, low fuel, trimmed out for max speed, single runs. They seem to struggle a little bit on the Sunday, a bit more than the others do. Although the Aston's so up and down, it seems to be really, really quick some tracks and really down the others. But there's no real pattern to the tracks involved.
See, Eamon says only in the hands of Russell. Good afternoon, Eamon. But I I think Latifi's doing a solid job. I mean, he's not setting the world alight, is he, Latifi? But I think he's doing all right. 11th place today. He's picking up the odd point now, here and there, and I think he out-qualified, technically, officially, out-qualified George Russell yesterday. Technically, he didn't, because George Russell was quicker on Saturday, and we had Friday, we had actual qualifying. But if you want to take the sprinters qualifying, which they do officially, he's ended George's run of beating his teammate. So I think Russell is miles ahead of him in that car, really, but I don't think Latifi's done a bad job at all. I think he's done all right.
Yeah, he's done a great job. Definitely earned his seat for next year.
Yeah, I was quite surprised by people getting quite mad at him actually getting that one, but I think it made sense for Williams with the money he brings as well. We've sort of touched on Sebastian. I'm just going to look through my notes actually very quickly before we roll on too much further. So we've talked about Ricciardo's lead. We've talked about Verstappen and Hamilton. We will talk about Gio in a moment. We've kind of touched on Stroll. Stroll also put the squeeze on Vettel, didn't he? There was contact between the two Astons on the opening lap or two, which I think left a little bit of damage. I seem to recall a shot of, as we look at it, of his front wing. Vettel's front
there
wing.
was a little bit trailing. It didn't seem major, but it certainly would have an effect.
Talked about Ocon. We've done Bottas, obviously. 5-second time penalty. To somebody in chat about the penalty thingy for Leclerc getting the black and white flag, I was talking about the incident itself was similar, not the penalty. I still think Leclerc probably is very lucky not to have got a penalty that day. But that was just after Canada when everyone was screaming we want them to be allowed to race. So you either want them to race or you kind of don't really. Verstappen, we talked about Verstappen. We've obviously done that one. I just want to make sure I've got everything that I've written down that I deemed relatively important enough to mention in the stream, even though it's dominated by one person. Talked about Perez's penalty for the overtake on Leclerc, or the corner cut on Leclerc, if you want to put it that one. So we will move. What more on Vettel? He was another one, wasn't he, in that gaggle of cars, but a pretty anonymous day, I'd say, for Seb. Really, I didn't remember seeing a huge amount of him apart from that squeeze from Stroll.
No,
that's fine.
Not a great deal. Very quiet race.
Yeah, I always do that because I don't want you to turn around and be like, actually, he overtook 8 cars in one corner or something like that. But, of course he did. Giovinazzi caused the incident for first lap. I mean, that was an unsafe rejoin, wasn't it? 100% unsafe rejoin. I mean, that's not even up for debate. I think Sainz actually quite lucky not to come off a lot worse in that, because often you see cars catch like that and you easily see the other one go round as well, can't you? So I think Sainz very lucky not to come off any worse, or maybe there was some damage, I don't know. I've not seen the Ferrari press release yet, but Gio's weird. Gio's so weird. I said on Twitter on Friday, Giovinazzi ain't going down without a fight. And that's how it feels. He really delivered in qualifying in Zandvoort. He delivered on Friday qualifying, did a good job in the sprint, and then it comes to the race. He had the puncture at Zandvoort, which isn't his fault, and then he has that incident, which is. It's just really frustrating, because I feel like if he could put a good run of races together and not just qualifying, he might be in with a shot if Sauber are so keen to get Porsche in that car in 23. So really frustrated, if that makes sense, because he's a nice guy and he's done well in qualifying the last few races, but it needs to be in the race as well, especially given that Williams have bogged off in the constructors now.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, last week he was really good. His qualifying was excellent, and then today he punched himself in the nuts. It was such a stupid rejoin, because he just went straight across the track. You keep to the right. It's a pretty blind luck that the car stayed off to the left after the impact. I was sort of wincing, trying not to look at the TV as it was sliding, because if it had rolled backwards a little bit, that would have been a very, very big mess.
Yeah, and they did well, didn't they, to avoid that? There was it the F2 where somebody went round after Ascari and somehow I think it was Liam Lawson avoided slamming into the side of him. It was similar to that in the sense that it's quite amazing to watch these drivers' reactions to avoid stuff like that. I don't know how much, because quite a bit of dust kicking up when cars spin in that situation. I do wonder how much of it is just out of blind faith that there's not a car there. But you're right, that could have been so much worse. It was
stupid. Nissany.
Pulled
full 720. That was That was an impressive spin. Impressive to not hit the wall as well.
Yeah, I was just checking Twitter for Stroll, but I think, yeah, silly from Giovinazzi. Robert Kubica, it's hard to say too much to assess him. I think he did well at Zandvoort, and I think he did very well again this weekend. It's actually put him, his result today has actually put him ahead of Mazepin in the standings. I just don't have a graphic big enough to fit 21 on. So I've had to put them together, but he's actually ahead of Mazepin in the standings after 2 races in that car. I mean, he did all right at Zandvoort. I think he did a cracking job this weekend, did Kubica again.
Yeah, I mean, yes, he's had the whole weekend, but it's still sort of jumping in with short notice. He still hasn't had a lot of experience with that car, so it's still a very good performance. And did you say that bit about the standings for a nice, convenient segue?
No. Should I have?
Well, we haven't covered Haas yet.
Oh, no. Oh, damn it. Yeah. On to Haas. Oh, thanks, Jonty. Oh, Jesus Christ, Sean, wake up. I'm not going to lie, that penalty for Verstappen's thrown me. Anyway, Mick Schumacher, 15th, Mazepin DNF, looked like a mechanical problem. We'll wait for the Haas press release if it comes through. Their emails don't always come through very quickly, but then the car's not very quick either, so there you go. 15th for Mick Schumacher, 16th Mazepin. They came to blows at least once this race. I didn't see the incident. Did you see the incident on the replay, Jonty? The one that sent... I think there was one at turn 1 with Vettel and Schumacher, wasn't there? But then there was another one with Schumacher and Mazepin.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw both. The turn 1 with Vettel and Schumacher, he just braked way too late and kind of nerfed him in the side. But the Mazepin one, people are making a massive, massive deal out of as if he tried to nerf him off on purpose. He just screwed up his braking. It was bad driving. It wasn't malicious driving.
I honestly can't comment because I've not seen it. If anybody wants to send me it on Discord or Twitter, I'll have a look at a replay and I'll have a look later and we'll do it in Q&A and I'll give a view. But
remember Vettel's with Lewis a couple of years ago? Back when he was still at Ferrari.
Oh.
Where it's the tiniest of tiny little touches and the car just goes round. It's exactly the same as that.
Okay. No, look, the thing is with Mazepin, it doesn't matter what he does. Whether it's his fault or not, he's going to get blamed, isn't he? So we kind of know that. But I still think... I think Gunther Steiner needs to, or Ferrari need to look seriously at maybe giving Alfa a bit of money and getting Mick Schumacher in that car because alongside Bottas for next year, because I think Haas could do with splitting them up because the last thing they need is them two coming to blows next year in a more competitive car potentially in what could be a fight for positions in the championship. And I look at Magnussen and Grosjean. I know they had a much more competitive car, but they got really punchy at times. So Mazepin and Schumacher, who already don't like each other apparently, I know Gunther Steiner says it's been blown out of proportion, but it's been blown out of proportion because the drivers are coming out and saying he's a dick, basically, aren't they? So I'm quite surprised there isn't more talk of Schumacher to Alfa because I think I'd want to split them up if I was a team boss. The problem is Mick Schumacher's got a hell of a lot of potential. He's a quick young lad and Mazepin ain't ever going anywhere, so you would have to lose Schumacher, who could be a driver that could make a big difference for you next year, potentially. Would you split them up?
Yes.
That was easy.
It's I think anyone would be a fool, particularly Ferrari, if they didn't have the sights on moving Schumacher up, just from a financial business standpoint. It sounds kind of cold, but the marketing opportunities they've got for getting a Schumacher back in a Ferrari in Formula One, you don't throw that away. That's a golden goose. So they've got to be aiming for that. I mean, there's all talk about the second Alpha seat. It probably is a bit early for him, but it would be safer in the long run for how he behaves mentally and what have you to get him in there next year, away from what is clearly a toxic place to be.
I suppose the thing is, from a 2023 perspective, if he stays at Haas next year, it's a more secure seat. Whereas 2023 at Alpha, if they're wanting to bring Porsche through and he continues to develop the way he seems to be, then they're not going to get rid of Bottas. He's on a multi-year deal to lead that team. Schumacher could find himself without a seat. Are Ferrari going to, based on the performances we've seen this season, if he carries it on, would you throw Sainz out of that Ferrari? Don't think I would.
No, I wouldn't. That's why it's difficult.
It's really difficult. It's also why we need more cars on the grid. We'll get to that at some point, I'm sure. I said it earlier. I'm just going to say it again because it's all I can think to say, bless them. Apparently, Drive to Survive were following Ferrari today. You could be forgiven for thinking they were following AlphaTauri. What a shocker. The only team prior to today to score in every single race this season, 12 months on pretty much from Gasly's emotional win there. And Tsunoda is taken off the grid with, I think it was a brake issue, and Pierre Gasly is retired, was it 3 or 4 laps in, something like that, and it was game over, which is such a shame, Jonty, because they've been more so Gasly, no offence to Tsunoda, but as a team they've been brilliant. But I think Pierre Gasly's been sensational this season, and Alpha should be very happy with their year. So it's just a real shame that on home soil they couldn't keep that point scoring run going.
Yeah, gutted for them. I'm pretty sure everyone stands for Gasly at this point because he's just one of the most likable on the grid, and his story up and down through his career it's led to him being so adored. And I know this might sound a bit negative towards the company, but AlphaTauri feel like they're becoming less Red Bull as time goes on. Do you know what I mean?
I completely agree.
They're getting their own, they've got their own identity that's becoming more and more clear and more separated from Marco and Mateschitz and all that lot. The whole entity. That's a good thing. So it's gutting to see them have such a bad weekend.
I think Franz Tost needs to have more of a say in the drivers as well. Which how can I word this? Just say it, Sean. It's your channel. Say what you want. I wonder if that's how Yuki kept his seat, because I cannot imagine, regardless of what he says in the press, Helmut Marko looks at Yuki Tsunoda this season and says he's been brilliant. Sign him up. I wonder if Franz Tost, maybe Honda as well, have had a say and said, look, keep him in there. Honda saying, you want our help next year with this. We'll do what we can, but you keep him in there. Franz Tost is happy with him. And I wonder if that's why he's got that seat and why they were so desperate to get Albon in a Williams. Because, Alpha, like you say, Alpha have got a bit more of a say in things, maybe.
Yeah. So this goes back to the start of the year with all the talk about Albon not going down to that seat. I'm sure there was something done in the deal with Honda to get the intellectual property for building their own power units. How long that is, I don't know. But I mean, after this year, even though he hasn't done badly, would you choose Tsunoda over Albon for 2022? Putting you on the spot now. How do you like it?
I just know that everyone. Oh, but Albon's so lovely. I think I would. I think Tsunoda's got mighty raw speed. We saw it in F2, and I think that booting him out after one season would be really unfair from Formula One. I think there's plenty of drivers who have had far too many opportunities in Formula One in the past. I'm not going to try and list any now, but there's drivers that we've had before that have had loads of opportunities, and I think it'd be really harsh to boot him out straight away. Give him another. He definitely seems to be improving. Give him another season, and yeah, I think I would take Tsunoda over Albon. Is that a controversial statement? Maybe. I don't know. I'm just waiting for a load of abuse now. Thank you to Black Hawk So, by the way. It says Ted Kravitz reported that Gasly was a power unit issue. Team spotted something that they were not happy about. Yuki brake line issue with possible leak of fluid. Thank you very much, mate, for that one. I don't know. I think we'll do driver market in a bit. I'm going to do some super chats quickly, then we'll do driver of the day, and then we'll go from there. Probably try and digest that penalty a bit more and try and work it out. Thank you very much to... Where did we get to? So I think WJ Slides, I think I did yours, says, would a grid penalty even matter if Max Verstappen takes a new power unit in Sochi? I think we now have an answer to that. I wouldn't be surprised now if they do go for that power unit in Sochi. May as well, if you're taking a penalty, you might as well get them all out of the way. We'll see. Greg, there's what we're up to. He says, so pumped for the return of the Honey Badger. Thank you very much for your contribution. Suji says, McLaren won that one on merit. That was a team working very effectively today. I would say Mercedes level efficiency. Thank you very much, mate. Phil says, I think Mercedes destroyed Bottas with the 1-year contract BS. Minute he gets a multi-year deal, he has the best race in ages. Maybe no coincidence there. Good point. Taylor Peck, thank you very much. Says Carlos has been doing pretty well, but he needs to stop crashing every weekend. Definitely needs to iron those ones out. Thank you again to Emily. Yes, I think I do need a drink. I'll pop that in the beer fund. Massively appreciated. So, driver of the day. Chat, one surname. Who have you got? I'll read a few of you out in just a moment. Daniel Ricciardo took the official driver of the day. Jonty, who have you got for driver of the day this weekend?
Despite everyone's going to say Ricciardo, deservedly so. So I'm going to say Bottas. That was the drive he should be doing, and we like it.
Second week in a row. I'm now going to have to come up with somebody else. Mine was Bottas. I think he was excellent today. I think Ricciardo absolutely was sensational. He got the official one though, so it is hard. It's hard to argue against Ricciardo, isn't it? Really, but it's also hard to argue against Bottas. So I'll go Tsunoda. No, Hey, he made it to the grid, bless him. He got up this morning, he had his breakfast, he cracked on it, all went roll for him. That is a tough one. It's between Ricciardo and Bottas, so you said Bottas, I'll go Ricciardo then. Big shout out for Norris as well too, though. I think he was very good today. He could have very easily really pushed the team, couldn't he? He asked the question and said, Ricciardo needs to be quicker. He could have really pushed that and been a bit more, well, as an F1 driver, selfish. That's what F1 drivers are. They want to win, don't they? They want to be the one that leads their teammate. But he was good today to play the team game. But I've got to say Danny Rick, because even prior to the incident, I think that race was absolutely in the bag. So yeah, it's actually a tough one. I think it is. I'm just trying to look through the field. I think it is really between those two, isn't it? Ricciardo and Bottas. I can't see. Everyone else just sort of did a good job, but I think they were, yeah. Let's see what you guys in chat. I've got to feel see where this is going. So I'll read some names out and then say if you've gone for, because I think a lot of people are going to go with the same one. So Hey Ray, Andre, Finley, Hydrophonic, Water, Corolla, F1 Fan 89, Brosif, and Sandro all saying Ricciardo. We've got CPB1 saying Bottas. We've also got Combot saying Voltas. Nuke Dukem says Bottas. Red Raven says Bottas. Did it again. Gay says Bottas. Who else we got? Pete's gone with Ricciardo. Real Little Crouton's gone with Ricciardo. Dan Philpott's gone with Russell. That's not bad. No, I think Russell did a good job today. I don't remember seeing much of him, bless him. I'm sure he was great. Turtles for Days says Ricciardo. Katie says Ricciardo. Let's scroll down a little bit further. Sandeep, Bottas. Carrie's gone with Bottas. Steve's gone with Botman. Wacko San says Norris. I think that's a fair shout. It's a good job today. C says Bottas. Emily's gone Danny Rick. I think we see what this is. A lot of people. Mr. Bruce Curry, who's saying Ricciardo. Bottas for Sunita and David. Lando for Mr. Labman. Yeah, there's only really, out of all of those that I'm reading now, and we'll start to get to the silly ones, Vin Diesel, says Steve. I said it on Twitter. Ted Kravitz shouting, "Get in there, son," at Vin Diesel is everything I needed this weekend. I didn't need any more than that. It was perfect. But pretty much, I can't even see. Thank you, Combot, for Van Dorn. We needed that one. Yeah, most people sticking with that. Couple saying now Alonso, Leclerc, maybe Vettel, Kubica. But for the most part, I think it is those three, Ricciardo, Norris and Bottas. So there we go. If you've got any questions, please do pop them in chat. I'll keep an eye on super chats as well. It would be good if we could keep them as race related as possible, but I have a feeling people are going to want to ask driver market questions as well. That's fine. We'll answer a few before we wrap up in about 15 minutes or so's time. Probably 15 minutes. So by 15 minutes, I mean, what, 6.5 hours? Something like that, usually on these streams. Don't forget to drop a like as well if you could for the for Lee's super chat. I forgot to say that earlier. We've got 422 likes, 1,800 watching. If we can get that to 500, that would be fantastic. So please do drop a like for Lee. If we can get to 600 as well, to include Charles Edward Cheese in there, that'd be fantastic. And to everybody else as well for your contributions, thank you so much. And don't forget to subscribe as well if you're new, because it's going to be a week off now from F1, but back again for everyone's favourite race of the year, Jonty, Sochi. I bet you're buzzing for that. Jonty's dead. What? I'm going to take that as a no then. I mean, Paul Ricard was good.
You'll have to imagine the tumbleweeds.
Paul Ricard was good. But then it couldn't be any worse, could it? So maybe it will be brilliant. I don't know.
Paul Ricard wasn't good. It was less bad.
I think that's fair. I mean, Sochi's followed by Turkey a couple of weeks later. Do you think we'll, looking at the calendar then, I'll put the first questions to you, Jonty, before I take some from the chat. They're starting to come in now. But do you think the calendar we've got now, aside from adding something under the TBC slots, do you think it's going to get done? Do you think we're going to do Turkey and the US and Brazil? I'm not so sure.
Not at this stage. It's changing so rapidly. And whilst not all of the US is banned, when the things coming out of Texas in particular, it's a new dumpster fire every day. So I'm really not convinced that's going to happen.
There's the red list issue as well for Turkey, isn't there? I just look at the calendar then, trying to work it out. So, I mean, Abu Dhabi's happening. We know Saudi's going to happen. It sounds like Qatar's still on the list to fill the slot that Australia had. That's probably going to happen. But I think the Americas is the big question mark, isn't it? Brazil, Mexico, the US. Turkey probably will happen, because even though it's on a red list, people can go there, can't it? It's the coming back they can't do. So if they go Turkey and then straight on to the next one, they should be fine. But really, yeah, I'd be surprised if we get through them. But you've got Mugello on the waiting list, if you like, haven't you? And there's the Nürburgring as well. We did in October last year, so they're doable. You can have another race around the outer loop at Bahrain if you need to. Could make a triple header at the end with Saudi and Abu Dhabi. So I think we'll still get 22 races in. And I think the fact they reduced the calendar from 23 to 22 says to me that they have got 3 or 4 races they can bring in to replace those that have gone. So I think they're pretty confident on that one. But we'll see. It is interesting because, and the reason I ask is because incidents like today with Hamilton and Verstappen, if this season gets any shorter, they're critical. They're critical moments.
Yeah. I mean, Chaz is saying the TBC, quite rightly, there's a lot of talk about it being Qatar. Who knows where that will go? But I mean, there isn't really that many options for those once they're gone, if they don't happen, because of the time of year. Because by this point we'll be getting into November, mid-November for some of them. Can't go anywhere in Europe.
Yeah, screw it. Silverstone backwards in November. What could possibly go wrong? Let's see. Yeah, I think Qatar is pretty much. Ryan White making the point, actually, US will only be cancelled if FOM cancels it. And I don't. That's a good point. Oh, it says FCOM, FCOM. Do you mean FOM? Right, but it's a good point, because FOM aren't going to cancel it, are they? Because they'll want their fee. So we could end up there because nobody would cancel it. It sounds stupid, but this is F1. Weirder things have happened, definitely. Let's see what you guys are saying in chat. Then answer some of your... FUD. I'm calling you FUD because I don't want to butcher the last part. Does Vin Diesel go against F1's green fuel credentials? Get out. Terrible. Is Danny Rick well and truly back, says Palmer, or asked Palmer. Obviously, the jury's out, isn't it? We'll find out in the next few races. But if it feels like he's got to grips with that car, Jonty, we said it earlier, didn't we? It just feels like he's got a little bit more, well, to grips with that car to ask exactly the same question again.
Yeah, we haven't seen the last of him this year.
Could you see McLaren winning another race this year? Because they've been quick.
I'm going to say yes, because I'm under no illusions that we are going to get more incidents from the title contenders.
Ooh.
Oh, come on, you're thinking it too. There is no way in hell we're going through the rest of the year without these two coming to blows again.
Well, the gloves were off anyway, weren't they? So they're off, thrown to the floor and returned by now. I mean, yeah, I'd be surprised. It doesn't always have to end like it did today, but a bit of wheel banging that causes a puncture or something like that, or a lost front wing. I think, yeah, there'll be something. Absolutely something. Real Little Crusoe says Verstappen was given a grid penalty. Yes, he was. 3-place grid penalty for Sochi. I haven't seen anything from Red Bull. I'd imagine they'll consider an appeal, but if they're going to take a power unit anyway, which actually prior to the weekend, it was either Crofty or it was somebody on Sky said that it was expected that Red Bull were going to take a power unit in Sochi anyway. So if they do that, and that was the plan anyway, they might not bother with the appeal because it doesn't make any difference, if that makes sense. But we'll see. Obviously, that's all speculation at this stage. But they decided that Hamilton was driving what they've called an avoiding line. They've then said that Verstappen was not... Well, they say the stewards observed that Verstappen was not at all alongside Hamilton until significantly into the entry of the first corner, and they felt that the move was too late from Verstappen to have been able to leave the right racing room. So that is why they've given the 3-place penalty for Sochi. How many Grand Prix do you think Vettel can win in Aston Martin? That's CBP1. That's one for you, Jonty. Do you reckon you see Vettel winning race at Aston next season?
All bets are off. Next year with the new cars. I hope so.
I know what my staff now has come out and said that they expect to keep Sebastian Vettel next year. I'm also fully aware they also said that about Sergio Perez a year ago, or just over a year ago. So we know that doesn't mean anything necessarily. There was some talk that he might be on his way out of Aston. It kind of emerged in the week. Do you think that's utter nonsense? I lean towards BS.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything in that.
Well, with Kimi retiring, maybe Seb might go, that's not a bad idea. Kimi might do the same. No, yeah, I don't tend to think that was... I think it was nonsense. Andre says, thanks, Sean. Here is $8.99 for some glasses. Please rewatch the footage. Max was more to blame and should have bailed, though I'm not sure he deserved a 3-place penalty. I'll try and get some glasses for $8.99. I'm not sure how good they'll be, Andre. They might be terrible. I might see it as Norris's fault or something. You never know. I'll get an Aldi pair. Why not? Thank you very much. I disagree. I think it's a racing incident, but hey, as I've said a million times before, it'd be boring if we all agreed. I've forgotten how to pronounce your name, and I'm so sorry. You'll know who you are. I did write it down, and I've lost my notepad, or I've not lost it. It's downstairs, and I'm not going to run away from the stream for 5 minutes to find it. But thank you so much. There's going back to the Hamilton-Vettel incident really quick. Yes, maybe Verstappen could have let Hamilton through, but seeing how hard it was to pass today, people would be saying he should have been more aggressive. Yeah,
that's the other thing. But that's the difficult side with us. We're included in that, because if everyone was being super cautious out there, we'd be saying, come on, at least go for it. And then we'd be saying, oh, why do you always crash all the time when they come together? It's a very fine line to walk.
Pretty standard for F1 though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Raz says, Austin will happen. I live in Texas. Government here is big on keeping businesses moving. Vaccination proof or test before entering may play a role, though. Thank you very much, Raz, for your contributions. I think that was everybody caught up on Super Chat. So thank you. I'll come back to chat in a second. Ashwin wants to know what the news is on Stroll. I've got the FIA page open. and there are no documents in there at the moment, but he still has been summoned for alleged failure to slow for yellow flag. So that one seems to be taking a little, although I'd imagine he was probably not priority. So he may not have been long. So when did the summons go in? That's a good question. Let's have a look. So he was summoned at 18:12 local time. Required to go to the stewards at 18:20. Verstappen and Hamilton, I think, were pretty much 5 minutes before that. So he may still be in there. We don't know how long Verstappen and Hamilton took to make decisions. Well, we do, but I'm not going to work it out. Yeah. So if it comes through Ashwin when I'm live, I will make sure to give it a mention as well. Corolla says you don't want a procession, but with racing there will be incidents. That's kind of what I said at the start about people getting really annoyed at every single time there's contact. There has to be a penalty because 20 cars racing. There's going to be contact somewhere in the field, isn't there? It's always going to happen. It's just part of racing. So, yeah, it's always going to happen. We've seen plenty, and we'll see plenty again between now and the end of the season. It wasn't just Hamilton and Verstappen today, was it? I mean, Giovinazzi's move with Sainz Giovinazzi's incident with Sainz was crazy. Greg says when you don't go for a gap, you're no longer a racing driver. I'll leave that with you, Jonty. I know it annoys you.
I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt with it being in quote marks, as it's being said ironically.
Yeah. Anyway.
Do you know what? I just want to make. You know one thing I really, really miss right now, especially with how this year's going? The cooldown room. Sorry, elbowing my monitor arm. The cooldown room.
Yeah.
None of these stupid drivers, bloody half about to pass out, dripping with sweat, interviewing with a mic in their face the second they get out of the car. I want the private little cooldown room. We got so much good stuff from that. Good, positive and negative. I mean, in real terms, it probably wasn't great, but I'm sure we all loved the hat throwing and what have you between Lewis and Nico. Can you imagine what it would be like right now? That tension when those two are in there. Or, like today, the enjoyment of Lando and Danny in there. It's something really, really missing, and the change has brought nothing.
I mean, it's given us ex-drivers conducting really awkward interviews. I mean, Felipe Massa, bless him. I know maybe he's not. I don't know does he do much broadcast stuff, Felipe? Because he seemed either really nervous yesterday after sprint, which we'll talk about in a minute. Don't worry. He seemed really nervous yesterday in the interviews, and that was a little bit terrible. David Coulthard today. Oh, hey, Valtteri, great drive today. By the way, your teammate, I'll give him some credit before you start putting him. No, I don't like I get why they do the straight out of car reaction, but if you stick a mic in front of these drivers as soon as they get out of the car, they're going to give you the PR lines. Like you say, if they're in the cooldown room, you're more likely to get a raw reaction, and I'd much rather, as a fan, see that, and then we get those brilliant multi-21, Seb. Yeah, multi-21 and the hat throwing, and you get I think it was Austin, and Verstappen fans, I'm not laughing at the situation, it's his face. Max's face when Austin, after he cut that corner and overtook Raikkonen and got taken out from the podium, that look on his face. We'd not have got that without the cooldown room. Yeah. I think those pursed lips I'm going to kill.
Yeah, I mean, that today from, was it DC doing the interviews?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, it's basically saying, Valtteri, what do you think of this thing that happened nearly 500 meters away from you whilst you were busy trying to drive a car at 210 miles an hour?
That you've not seen a replay of yet.
Like, what the hell? It's like going on a quiz show and them asking you, what did Anne Boleyn have for breakfast? I don't know.
Not as much as her husband. It's my answer to that one. There you go. Good point as well. The torpedo chat with Kvyat and Vettel. The whole that's racing. I still think Kvyat was fine on that. By the way, let's not get into that. If you're still angered at that, by the way, and that still winds you up, then I'm sorry, but I still think Verstappen on Raikkonen and Austin was a penalty. I'll stand by that. Go watch my track limits video from 2017 when I think that's the video that got Jonty to find me as a channel and the rest, as they say, is history. And yeah, and what was the other one? The Fiat on the two Ferraris at China. I think whatever. He's throwing it up the inside, but whatever. That was all right for me. Anyway, let's take a look. English muffins, says Greg. That's what I'm going to have for breakfast. Come on, Jonty. Kazua, yes, thank you. I wasn't sure. I had a suspicion, but thank you so much for another super chat to confirm your name. I didn't do that so that you do that, by the way. I will definitely give that a jot down and make sure that I've got it somewhere for future reference. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed. If you've got a question, bang it in there. We're going to talk about sprint qualifying, whatever you want to call it, quickly now. I think it needs a good few minutes of a chat. I'm just going to... I've tried to think of how I want to word this today, so I'm just going to say it as I said it yesterday after I'd finished watching. I don't think it works. I don't think sprint, as it is now, works. I don't think... People keep saying it adds something to the weekend. It's better than FP3. Meh. I mean, it is better than a practice session, but it wasn't exactly thrilling. Yes, it set up a great race today, but I'd much rather have seen proper normal qualifying on Saturday. And this isn't Sean resistant to change. Sean and Jonty, by the way, nice how this has worked out. We've always said that, give something a go. Try it with reverse grids. Give these other ideas a go. But if they're not working, accept they're not working and don't go, we'll make some changes for next year, even though we've not technically confirmed they're happening, because this is, in air quotes, just a trial, which is why we spent a fortune on branding and spent a lot of time bringing in a multi-million-pound title sponsor for it. It was never a trial. I'm going to say it was never a trial. I just don't think it works, Jonty. And I'm going to go back to what we've had this conversation before. I think it only works if it's reverse grids.
Yeah, absolutely right. Just use the previous Formula 2 system. You still have qualifying, which you can have on Friday. Reverse the top 10 for the sprint race on Saturday. Qualifying still sets the grid for Sunday. It's that simple. I've had literally hundreds of replies, all saying something like that to me on Twitter.
It's something that I think has got potential, and I think it could work. But I don't think it... I'm trying to think how I want to work. So when I come away from watching qualifying, normal qualifying on a Saturday afternoon, I'm buzzing. I am hyped. I even sit here going, should I go live for an hour? Just have a quick chat with everyone. I feel that hype. Yesterday, when it finished, I turned it off and went and got on with my day, because I just didn't... It didn't excite me. I think I disagree with lots of people on Twitter who say that Monza was better than Silverstone sprint race. I don't agree. I think Silverstone was better than Monza. I don't know what Ross Brawn has been watching. Theoretically, on paper and all that business, you can overtake better, or there are better opportunities to overtake at Monza, but he's saying that he's surprised the drivers couldn't overtake, so I don't know what Italian Grand Prix he's been watching over the last few years, because I think that was pretty well known that, yes, again, theoretically, you can overtake easier at Monza, but we don't always see that. And I'm glad that they're open to changing it, and they have said that they will make changes for next year by making it a standalone event, which I think would be better. I think it would be better, because then I think the idea is that you would have what we have now, so qualifying on a Friday, but that qualifying sets the grid for both Saturday and both Sunday, or Sunday as well, both Saturday and Sunday is what I'm saying. But the problem there is, are you not just getting two of the same then, but one shorter? So why not reverse it on a Saturday, give points 10-1, so 10 for the win, 1 for 10th place, so there's something to fight for, and there you go. I think that makes a massive difference. And even just changing the schedule, FP1 Friday morning, FP2 Friday afternoon, qualifying Saturday morning, sprint Saturday afternoon. Just something. I know they want to energise all 3 days, but as the schedule, that as a fan appeals more to me, even though I do this full time and I can free the time to watch it. I think of all the fans who maybe can't catch qualifying live, and it is often somewhere like Monaco, the highlight of a weekend. I know sprint wouldn't necessarily happen there, but I just think there are... it needs changing. Big time.
Yeah, I was just about to... Carrie brought it up in chat. Yeah, qualifying on the Saturday morning, then the sprint in Saturday afternoon. That'd be much better. And also, we can have F2 and F3 going back to the old system because the three-race system is stupid.
It is stupid. Me and Dan were talking about this. It's a stupid system for F2, but I think as well, from a marketing point of view or from a financial point of view, whatever you want to call it, I think you'll sell more tickets for a Saturday of qualifying in the morning and sprint in the afternoon than you will on a Friday for qualifying at 5 p.m. when people are trying to get back from work or can't get the time off work. I think that, to me, makes a lot more sense. But I get why they're doing it and they want to mix it up. But I am going to go into old school. I've been watching 30 years. I'm gonna go into one of those moods now. And this is where I agree with Fernando Alonso. Why are FOM so desperately intent on improving the show, as they call it? Alonso's right. How many times, if you're a football fan, as in soccer if you're in the US, but as a football fan, do you watch a boring, drab, 0-0 Crystal Palace versus Burnley in the Premier League? Do the papers fill up the next day with, we need to change football forever? I know it's very different and Formula One's very niche and there's not as many teams and I get all that. I just don't understand why we have to go try to improve the show when actually we've bought these sprints in this year. They've trialled them. Why not bin them off for next year, see how these cars respond first, and then bring it back for 23 when it's had its tweak? I just don't think there's any need to keep trying to improve the show. I think if you like Formula One, you're going to watch Formula One. If you don't like Formula One, a sprint on a Saturday afternoon is unlikely to change your mind.
Yeah, well, that is the other important point with this that most of the people I know have been sticking to. It's like, surely that's the whole point of the 2022 cars. The only reason people want more excitement, a reverse grid race or all sorts of stuff, is to get more excitement because there isn't much overtaking. That's literally the entire point. So like you say, what's the point in doing these races next year if the cars are for that? I just don't get it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like the way reverse grid races work. Because in those series that use it, not the two race, I keep saying, it's those who make the most out of being disadvantaged by the reverse grid who are able to really push forward for the title. It really does make a big difference in the title fight. Is it unfair when the cars are clearly different? Maybe.
Couple of points in chat. M. Augustine says, how is improving bad for the sport? By definition, improving is for the better. Not always, because it's not an improvement, in my opinion. It's an improvement on, yes, I would rather watch a race than FP3, but frankly, I'd also rather go and have a really long poo than watch FP3 some Saturday morning, so that doesn't really say a lot.
F1 2021 is an improvement over F1 2020, the games. How's that working out?
Josh Mason, don't you dare start that one. Says, change is a key part of F1 and comparing it to other sports is dumb. No, it isn't. People always compare F1 to everything else, so it's not dumb at all. I take your point that change is important in Formula One, but there's nothing wrong with what we have. The point I'm making is that what they've said is, they said, look, the show in F1 isn't good enough. The racing, it's hard to overtake. It's hard to follow. We need to improve the show. And what they've done is taken the most boring part of most races and made a separate race out of it, whilst taking the one part of the race weekend, which is 99% of the time absolutely brilliant, and chucked it on a Friday afternoon and given it zero relevance. I know they're changing it for next year, and there's talk that the pole position will be awarded for qualifying as it should be, but that's the point I'm making. I'm not resistant to change. As we've said before, Jonty, we've always pushed for F1. If they're going to do it, try reverse grids. And we always said last year, 2020 was the perfect time to try it rather than this year. But I think it was Carrie in chat saying that 2021 has been a brilliant show. It doesn't need improving. We don't need the sprint. I just don't think it works. And I think that if they could tweak it and get the balance right, it could be. I still think there's potential there, Jonty. Tell me if you completely disagree.
Yeah, there is potential there, but they've just got to get it right. But how do you keep doing little tweaks whilst trialing it when there's a title going on? When there's a championship running? It can't happen during the season because, what if the title ends up being decided by one of those 9 points that are available across the 3 trial weekends? Does it invalidate it? I would say so.
Oh, see, that's a see. I get where you're coming from, and I see exactly the point you're making on it. But I think that it's the same for everybody. So I think it doesn't make it. I don't think it invalidates it. I think it's one of those that a little bit like people say about last year. It'll have an asterisk over it, if that makes sense.
I'm not against the ideas of having various different things throughout the year to suit the track specifically. Have different types of qualifying for Monaco, possibly Monza, Zandvoort, because of the difficulties that happen in qualifying there. We don't, even with the new cars of 2022, we're not going to get spectacular racing at Monaco because it's too small. It's just not going to happen. The cars can't fit around there. So give us a full-blown time trial, a special weekend where it's all about absolute maximum pace. Something different like that. You have the time trial events during, I know it's human-powered, but Tour de France, you get normal events and the time trials. You get it in, make a super special stage like rally or whatever. Certain areas, different things can be done. But the problem is it can't happen in the middle of a championship. I'll never agree to that. Because you can end up with a deserving driver getting stuffed.
Do you think there's an argument for making the sprint a separate championship? Just for the record, I don't. Because I think that's just going to cause way too many problems. But if they're going to do it, that then doesn't affect the main championship. But does anyone care about the sprint champion? I mean, they don't now, but 70 years they might. I've thrown it out there to play devil's advocate.
I'm not really sure that would work either.
No. Black Hawk So says breaking Stroll warning, otherwise no further action. Thank you very much. I'll have a look for the release in a moment. I've got to wait to tell. This is somebody else actually mention somewhere, and if I can't find it, I apologise. I forgot to mention it earlier as well. The slow pit stop. Oh no, I did mention it. The slow pit stop for Max Verstappen apparently was due to, it was a human error. Apparently they didn't press, one of the wheel guard operators didn't press the OK button. Is one of the comments on chat. That's just from chat, so I will double check that one. But yeah, no, I think the championship thing. I mean, it's got to be more points, surely. You've got points. I got some backlash from this when I did a preview where the first time we have sprint, so Silverstone weekend. People saying, well, of course they're going to race because I kind of made the point that what are you racing for? If you're 11th, what's the point of taking the risk? Oh, of course they're going to race for 10th because it's an extra place on the grid. Actually, as it's turned out, they probably won't because what's the phrase? The reward isn't enough for the risk. The risk reward isn't right. So if you're 11th and you go for 10th, yes, you might start P10 on Sunday. However, if you don't risk that crazy dive bomb or that awesome move, you'll definitely start 11th. You'll get a free choice of tyre. Why make the move? However, if you do points, 10 points for first all the way down to 1 point for 10th, it is suddenly worth that risk if you're a Nicholas Latifi or a Kimi Räikkönen in that position, for example. So I think more points need to be awarded, but then is that going to have too much of an impact on the championship? Do you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah. This is what we call being on a merry-go-round. Round and round in circles. I must have heard and read about 50 different viewpoints and arguments for it. and all of them agree and disagree on exactly the same points. I would much rather just get rid of it. Get rid of the sprint and come up with something for the difficult races. But in 2023, we have to have next year to see how the cars work.
And just FYI as well, if 2022 cars work, if you bring in sprint back for 23, get rid of DRS while you're at it as well. Because if the cars work, we don't need it. I'm like that with DRS. If the cars can follow and drivers can get close to each other, and then ultimately we get close racing and that results in overtakes, we don't need DRS. Get rid of it. Or for the millionth time, Jonty, in the last 4 years, bring in proper, not like we have now, but the proper driver deployed KERS, button on the steering wheel, battery fills up at the end of every lap. Oh, I miss those days.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, if the 2022 cars and changes don't go that well, who cares? Because the hypercar for 2023 looks incredible.
I've not seen it, to be honest.
9 manufacturers in it right now.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, is that the one that Giovinazzi's linked to for Ferrari?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that could be fun then. Definitely. Actually, just while we're talking about news, or if you want to call it news, apparently there's been a meeting this weekend with manufacturers about power units for the future, and it looks as though it's going to be delayed to 2026, which I think would mean no engine development between now and 2026, which is quite huge. Apart from there'll be some areas I'm sure they'll be allowed to. I don't know. I don't have it all in front of me. It might be complete. I don't know. But talk that Mercedes are willing to sign up to get rid of the MGUH if it encourages the VW group to come in. So it sounds like there might be somebody interested somewhere, VW, in coming into Formula One in the future. But then the next problem we've got, John, Tim, it's crazy. They want a commitment, a financial commitment from these teams to kind of pay an absolute fortune to come into the sport. I think the idea is to kind of prove that they're not going to disappear after 2 years, which seems mad to me.
Yeah, I hate that. That needs to go. Again, loads of people I've seen agree on that. It's ridiculous. Pay this, and then in 3 years, you can get something back. But it won't be very much because you'll be crap. Because you haven't got as much money to put in developing your first car. Your first 2 cars.
A couple of quotes from Christian Horner and Max Verstappen, and I can't load it up. Why aren't you loading? There we go.
No.
So Max has said, we were racing for position today, but you need 2 people to work together. He said all this post-race, didn't he? You need 2 people to work together, squeezing, crashing, etc., etc. I don't fully agree with the penalty. As I believe it was a racing incident. It's very unfortunate what happened today, but we are both professionals, and so we will move on. I must admit, it doesn't feel as toxic as the Silverstone one, but then that is always helped when teams don't come out stirring the pot. And Christian Horner says, we are disappointed with the 3-place grid penalty, but accept the steward's decision. We felt what happened between Max and Lewis was a genuine racing incident. You can argue for both sides, but ultimately it's frustrating and disappointing to see both cars out of the race in what is proving to be an exciting world championship. You're right there, Christian. So Red Bull, although they don't agree, accept the steward's decision. So that's almost as surprising as the penalty. I thought they were going to come out all guns blazing and going for getting that overturned. So, total speculation, Jonty. Do you think that leans towards them kind of accepting that they'll go for it? They were going to take an engine penalty next time out, as was reported?
Oh, yeah, definitely. They'd be crazy not to.
Makes sense, doesn't it? Especially now they've got that one. Thank you to Black Hawk So. Thank you very much, mate. It says, am I the only one that is glad that they got rid of the driver of the day cool down lap interview over the radio? Yes. That was a stupid thing that they tried. It works in Formula E because Formula E love a gimmick. In Formula One, plus I think Formula E drivers are more outspoken and you're more likely to get a genuine reaction, whereas in Formula One you just effectively sticking a mic under their nose and they're just going to be like, oh yeah, it was a great race, really happy. You'll get the odd brilliant radio, but I wasn't a big fan of that. So Raz, sprint was thought of in 2020 without understanding how exciting 2021 would be. Who would know? If 2022 will have close racing, no case for sprint. I still think 2020 was an even better year to test it than this year. And Nick Lasses says, did you hear the rumours about VW entering F1 in 2026? We've just got over that one, so that's really good timing. I guess super quickly then, Jonty, do you think we'll see VW or any new manufacturer come in 26 if things go the way they sound like they're going?
I hope so. It's definitely sounding positive. I've seen a lot of people hating the fact they're getting rid of the MGUH, which I don't understand. Yes, it's incredible technology, but the complexity and the cost is a massive it is a negative effect on the teams in it now and the power unit suppliers now, never mind those who are looking to come in. But yeah, I'm with you. I just want them to do more driver deployed stuff. And there is a lot of talk about the biofuel, fully sustainable fuel that they're thinking about using, which if they are, I see no reason going back to a bigger ICE. There's a lot of things to work out, but I just feel that we've got a big long list of things we need to tick. We've got to tick them all, which I don't get. Stop it. Make it simple.
I think a lot of people would like to see the big V10s back, wouldn't they? Just for the noise. I think more than anything, it just adds to the spectacle. But I'll always say these cars aren't quiet. They're not V10 screaming, but they're not quiet. So I'm really intrigued to see where the engine thing goes. But I fully suspect it'll be what we have now, but without an MGUH. Maybe a bigger MGUK, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because they're talking about harvesting from both axles.
Yeah.
Only deployment from the rear, which will make the brake-by-wire systems and the harvesting systems far more difficult. So who knows? Maybe the cost of getting rid of the MGUH will just end up going into the coding for how the energy recovery system is managed.
I saw a question. It's gone. I can't. That's so annoying. Yeah, because was the four-wheel drive thing, is that effectively what that is? Because that was rumoured, wasn't it, that we're going to four-wheel drive in the next engine formula?
Well, it was the logical solution because there's the whole motor generator unit. Spin it by itself, power comes out, put power in, it spins. But that would take away so much of the driver skill involved. You know, there has actually been four-wheel drive Formula One cars. I'm not sure if they raced. They definitely tested, but it was banned pretty much instantly.
Just a not heads up, but just kind of an update on the Stroll thing. I've got the thing up now. So he was not respecting yellow flags in turns 8, 9, and 10. So that's a Ascari, isn't it? And on the run, yes, Ascari. So although the marshalling system was not showing yellows, the marshals were showing yellow flags from the entry to turn 8 to the exit of turn 10. There was one flag point that was not easily visible to the driver or drivers that was showing a double yellow. However, this was parallel to an easily visible flag point that was showing a single yellow. The stewards were able to determine that the driver slowed as required in the regulation, however, could have done so earlier. The stewards therefore issue a warning. So that's Lance Stroll. No penalty for Stroll. It keeps his 7th place. So he's got some points as Lance. I don't think that moves him above Vettel in the champion. I might be completely wrong on that. I will check it for you now. I did do the standings and I've forgotten already. But there you go. No, it doesn't move. So he's 24 points for Lance and 35 for Seb Vettel. So 11 points between them. 11 points can, have a good weekend. That could be turned around. But I thought Vettel and Stroll were closer than that on points. I suppose Seb's had a podium, hasn't he? That's what swung that was. Sorry, I just thought it was a closer battle than that in the championship. Anyway, just to confirm as well, Hamilton now 5 points behind Max Verstappen in the standings because of those 2 points for sprint. That was the other thing as well. I think that we have to bear that in mind as well for sprint. It's just coming to me now. I think the reason as well it was a little bit pants was because as soon as Hamilton had his bad start, he couldn't take stupid risks to get past Lando Norris because it wasn't worth it for what may turn out to be a point. But also Verstappen, once he was up to second place with Bottas first, he knew he had pole if he just didn't do anything stupid because he was taking a penalty. So I think that contributed. I think maybe if he'd had Hamilton leading and Verstappen second, it might have been a bit more interesting, or vice versa. But I think there was no need for Verstappen to go all out, was there, on Saturday, because he had pole. He didn't need to do anything.
No, not at all. That was very, very sensible driving.
Maybe that was a contributing factor. It's just my thinking on that one. But I mean, we'll see how it goes in Brazil, or whether they do the third one. It might be better. It's the tracks. The cars can't follow. There's not much overtaking at most of these tracks anyway because of that, and some of the tracks aren't great for it as well. So we'll see. But I think we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. And yeah, won't get rid of the MGUH, make the cars much louder, says Josh. That might be a question for you, Jonty. I have no idea.
Yeah, it should definitely help a little bit, because the more the MGUH is doing, that's more of the exhaust that's being used.
Honey Badger says they already showed a sketch of a four-wheel drive. I know I'd seen something on racefans.net. They'd done something on there, so that was quite an interesting one. I've not seen that sketch, so feel free to share it, definitely. Sonoda's so lucky, in my opinion, getting a contract for next year. He's quick, but has a lot of rough edges to smooth out before he's competitive, says Josh Mason. I think a lot of people agree with you on that one, actually, Josh. Were you surprised? I know we've kind of talked about it, Jonty. Are you surprised by any of the driver moves this week? I mean, Russell to Mercedes. I mean, that came out of nowhere, didn't it? I mean, God.
Not really, no. They're all fairly obvious. The album was a little bit surprising. Yeah, I do. Obviously, he deserves a seat here, but I think I'm sure we spoke about it in DMs, and De Vries is a better choice. Sorry, but he is. He's proven champion in 2 different series now.
I mean, you know my opinion. You know my view. I think.
Yes, we all know your view. Stuff.
Yeah, it was the only logical choice. If Mercedes and Red Bull couldn't decide, fighting over that seat between Albon and De Vries, then it should be Stoffel. It's obvious. There you go. I think I agree. I think De Vries, world champion in Formula E, Formula 2 champion. Alex Albon third in F2. I think I don't want to judge Albon in the same way that I don't want to judge Gasly looking back now. Now we've got Perez in that second Red Bull. You can see that car is not an easy car to drive. If Sergio Perez can't do it, then clearly there are problems there. So I think that cuts Albon and Gasly a little bit of slack. But people rave about how good Albon was at Toro Rosso, but Gasly hopped back in that, Albon matched Kvyat. Gasly hopped back in the same car and smashed the living hell out of him. So I'm still not. I have this weird thing, and I call it the David Moyes syndrome. Yeah, we're on football again. I do not believe. Man United fans are going to go mad at me now. I do not believe that Manchester United would be an awful lot worse or awful lot better off if they kept David Moyes. I don't think Louis van Gaal did anything special. I don't think, Jose won a couple of trophies, but I don't think he did anything that David Moyes couldn't have done if he'd been backed in the transfer market and had been given the time that he was promised. The reason I'm going down this route is that what I'm saying is I don't necessarily think that looking at Pierre Gasly now, with obviously the benefit of a lot of hindsight in his performances, had they stuck with him, would he be doing at least what Perez is doing now? That's my David Moyes syndrome. I'm sorry, John, to just bored you to death with football, but that's how I just don't think Gasly would be doing any worse than Perez. So with, again, that massive amount of hindsight, I kind of wish they stuck with him, see where they're at. If that makes sense. Tell me if that makes no sense, and I'll go and have another drink.
What?
I said football and Jonty went to sleep. It's just...
No, I think it's probably valid. I just find it difficult to make the comparison because that's managing 11 different people, whereas this is a guy doing it himself. If you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah, it's not a direct comparison. I'm just saying that's how I view it with Moyes. So if they'd given Gasly the time that he needed, I don't think he'd be doing any worse than Perez. I'm not comparing the two as such. I'm using it to try and explain what I'm trying to say. I don't think Red Bull would be any worse off with Gasly in that car if they stuck by him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get you. But then you can go back and say the same about Gasly.
Albon.
Albon.
I don't know. I don't think Gasly was great in that car.
Liuzzi, Buemi, Verne.
Buemi? No, I don't like I said. I don't think Gasly was epic in that seat or anything, but I don't think he was as bad as people like to make out. So we've said it before. Something's happened behind the scenes that we don't have the full story of, and that's why. But I'll just quickly look in chat, see if anyone's said anything interesting. Braveheart says, is the 3-place grid penalty for Max confirmed? Yes, it is, mate. So if you're a Verstappen fan, I'm sorry about that one. Raz, thank you very much for your super chat. Says maybe AWD would be electronically modulated, controlled like curves, 50-50 for starts, and then deployable as needed where allowed. That would be cool. Thank you very much, mate. Black Hawk says, do you think if they switched to something like an hybrid turbo inline 4, they would get more manufacturers interested in joining as closer to road cars?
That would bring more road relevance to it. Although, given the choice with everyone complaining about noise, then inline 5 would be better. The firing sequence just makes such a beautiful noise. But I like the idea of the changeable all-wheel drive. That could be another driver-controlled thing similar to brake bias. But then look at the amount they have to do with the wheels already.
That was I have no idea what any of that means.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, well, see, that's one thing where I do like to stay old school. I like when drivers had a little lever in the cockpit to change the brake balance. That was 100% on the driver. But now, yes, they're still choosing what the change is, but it's all pre-programmed increments. You know what I mean? I don't really. It's less. Also, organic.
Like I say, I'm nodding along. Nobody can see, but I'm nodding along, mate. I'll see if anybody responds to that with you. But I do very good point before we go. Actually, Max Claydon, how many tissues will be needed when watching that Schumacher documentary next week? I saw the update from his wife, I think it was.
Yeah.
And that was enough to set me off. So it's one of those things that I'm looking forward to watching, but I'm also kind of dreading watching. Honestly. I think it's going to be emotional. Obviously, I'm sure there's many in chat that were huge Schumacher fans. I absolutely was. Stupid bloody fanboy I was. But that'll be an emotional moment. Definitely watching that. Is it the 15th? So that's Wednesday?
Yeah.
It's out. So on Netflix. Yeah, emotional, Max. I'm expecting it, mate. Quite a few is my answer to that one. Are you looking forward to it, Jonty? In a weird way?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's well, I'm one of those nerds. I love all the documentary type things. I mean, I get the trepidation because it is going to be quite sad. With the what was the F2 one called? Fight to Win. When that came out, you knew it was going to be a tough watch because of 2019. But yeah, I do like watching them. The only one I don't really like is Drive to Survive because they put so much falsehood in it.
Do they really? To me, I think the best episode of Drive to Survive was season 2, the Williams episode. Oh, that was so good. Oh, what an episode that was. Yeah, I get Drive to Survive. I think it's kind of fun to watch, but as seasoned F1 fans, it's a bit ridiculous. When they did the Vettel team radio from the year before, and it was like, oh, right, okay. That doesn't work, and it's not in any order. So yeah, it's fun to watch. It's something to watch other than some of the crap that's out there. But yeah, I like, obviously Senna was a great documentary. There's some good ones actually on Amazon Prime. I watched a McLaren one when Stoff was there, and I can't remember what it's called now. But that was quite good. I think, isn't there a Fernando Alonso documentary that might be worth a watch as well? It could be interesting. So yeah, I think I'm looking forward to it, but also kind of dreading it as well. As a couple, I mean, Black Hawk so saying that in chat as well. So yes, we'll see. We're going to wrap it up there. I'm just having a quick... Rush says Ryan White. Absolutely, that was one of the better done F1 movies. That one, that was a proper movie as well. So definitely, yes. We'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much, Jonty. I know we had a fair bit to get through early on, and then we got to the rest of the field and. It's kind of like, well, they were there. But yeah, thank you, mate. It was good to have a good old waffle with you, and I'm sure we're all really looking forward to Sochi and then the rest of what is a freaking epic season. It's ridiculous how good this year is.
Yeah, it really is a good season. And who knows? I mean, we've had other not great tracks end up being spectacular, so it's not all doom and gloom for Sochi yet.
Is it the last one at Sochi?
I don't know.
Aren't they going to the one, is it near St. Petersburg?
Oh, St. Petersburg.
Has that fallen through?
I don't know if that's fallen through or if it's still fine. I hope it's still fine because it looked like a good track.
It's either this one that's the last one or it's next one for Sochi. I'm sure it's coming up soon. Also, that documentary as well on Prime is Grand Prix Driver. Thank you very much, F1 Fan 89.
Yes.
I quite like that one. Got a bit of insight into all that fuss. We'll see. We'll see with Sochi. It could be brilliant, but yeah.
Thanks for having me on. Thanks for coming along, everyone. And hopefully we've got loads to talk about next time, whenever that is.
If not, we'll just do the Macarena. I don't know why we'd do the Macarena, but why not?
I prefer Saturday night, to be fair.
Yeah, I agree. But anyway, thank you very much, mate, and I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, well, I've got to disappear straight away because
no worries, mate.
For the loop.
All right, mate. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Thank you to Jonty. Thank you to you guys as well for coming along. Pleasure as always to hang out with you post race. Thank you as well. Actually, chat not as bad as I thought we might be, but I think there seems to be a lot less anger over this one. I think a lot of people can appreciate different views. I'm sure there have been some mods that are probably in Discord later telling me how bad it was. But thank you so much for your company. It's been great fun. Now I will be back. I got to reschedule. I forgot I think at Wednesday. I don't know. It's middle of the week. It'll be. For anybody wondering, we've got the new RAM in the PC. We've got through the stream. It seems to be working. Fingers crossed the blue screening issues are sorted. I will keep you updated over on Twitter. Links in the description to social media as always. Don't forget to drop a like. 542. If we could get another 60 before you disappear, that would be epic. But we've got over the 500, which is fantastic. Don't forget to subscribe as well so you don't miss out on any future content, streams and all of that good stuff. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.